New Year's resolutions, they often only last a very short period of time. And I don't believe that in our society, in our culture, in our community, we can have a conversation about mental health without addressing the issue of the substances that we use. Now, having said that, I'm sitting here, with a cup of coffee, and that's about the drug that gets me through the day. Now, I have usually a rule. I only have 2 cups of coffee a day because when I was at university, part of my anxiety problem was that I was drinking absolutely bucket loads of caffeine. And, when I entered into a relationship with a psychologist at uni, it was like, you need to give this up. A lot of your anxiety is actually coming, not so much from the statistics, it's actually coming from the caffeine. And he was right. And it took me about 48 hours to get through some fairly onerous symptoms around that, like headaches, a bit of, a few palpitations. So, it had a meaningful impact. Now, the other drug that I tend to need to work with people on is their alcohol consumption. And it's problematic because alcohol is readily available, it's tasty, and it's a social lubricant. Now, true, in the short term, alcohol is going to give you a bit of a serotonin lift, but regular use will actually decrease the level of serotonin in your system, and it will trigger anxiety, and over a longer period of time also depression. So for a lot of people, Mondayitis is not got anything to do with Monday. It's all about how much piss you had on the weekend. Okay, I'm going to call the kettle black. So this, how do I get on top of this, is going to be an interesting question, because we still have a culture where if you're not drinking, some people get a hard time about it. And the more blokey, the more male, the more masculine, in inverted commas, the environment is, the more it's expected. I get 15, 16 and 17-year-old boys who are practicing to be exceptional at drinking. Now, with some of them, they recognise fairly quickly that their system's not geared up to do that, and that not only are they going to have a problem physically, but they're also going to have mental issues. Their thinking's off, their emotional regulation's off, and also their behaviour goes off. So, really important stuff. So, and I want everybody listening to this podcast out there is to take, stock of what it is that you're doing with the substances in your life. And it doesn't necessarily need to be alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, speed, MDMA, ecstasy, whatever it is. It could be also things like, the amount of sugar you're eating, because in essence, enough sugar, it can act like a drug. It just doesn't give you the same high, although for some 5-year-olds with red frogs, we are looking at someone who's going to be extremely dysregulated and bouncing off the walls. Okay, when they get a bit older, that settles down. But the reality is, for some people, it's not about the traditional substances. It's, abusing food. It's abusing exercise. So addictions come in many different shapes and forms. And the idea is, if we are going to feel good in ourselves, we need to take a look at all of that. But the one that I really want to stress today and in the next podcast is the whole issue about substance abuse and addictions. So what I'd like everybody to do is for 1 week to sit back and take stock of what it is that you drink. So alcohol, coffee, the sort of coffee. I mean, I asked someone the other day, how much coffee are you drinking? Oh, not a lot. I have 3 coffees a day. Now, I sat back and I went, okay, that's really interesting. That's not too much. I have 2. And then as we got the conversation rolling, it turns out that his, coffees are actually triple shots. So he's not having 3 coffees, he's having multiples of that. And so we started then talking about, that's a lot of caffeine to take in one day. So, the beauty about alcohol is that we can measure it, and there is a direct correlation on the impact on us physiologically and psychologically. Right? When I deal with male suicide, one of the things I'm very conscious of is that alcohol and drug use has a phenomenal correlation to that behaviour, and it's very, very scary. It is the thing that we need to be most careful about when anybody is expressing ideas of suicide. Is what are they taking in on top of that? Are they self-medicating? So take stock. Are you smoking? If so, how much? Are you vaping? How much? On the weekends, are you doing cocaine, ecstasy, speed, ice, whatever it is? Now, unfortunately, we have a legal system. I say unfortunately because it stops people from really being honest about what they're doing. But I think, if we're going to talk turning points, as I said, 1 in 20 Australians, I'm not sure what the statistics are in the United States. I'm going to look that up and I'll introduce that in the next podcast. But it's those people, and there for the grace of God go I in many respects. We need to take a stock of what we're doing, because it's all very well going to a professional and saying, I'm feeling anxious or depressed, and not sharing with that person how much of this stuff you're actually ingesting, because it's relevant. And not every person is going to focus or refocus and ask the right questions in that context. I was fortunate. My first job as a psychologist was working in the field of drug and alcohol use, abuse, and addiction, both as a therapist but also as a community educator. And, some people will pull me up and go, don't get preachy with me. And I go, well, I'm not getting preachy. If you want to keep doing that, you're going to need to understand that at some point the wheels are going to fall off your bike. It's not about being preachy. It's about educating people properly so that they can make some informed decisions with the support that they need. And some people may need to go into hospital or into rehab. Other people will learn, skills and strategies and explore why they're doing this to themselves in an outpatient setting or with a therapist. Could be a psychologist, could be a psychiatrist, could be a social worker. So on that note, this is a real emphasis on a major necessary turning point if we're going to get any real handles on our capacity to deal with psychological distress and disorders and foster resilient mental health. So until next time, let me sign off. Look forward to having your company again in a week's time.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change with Gunter. Gunter Swoboda does individual and group coaching for men looking to grow. For more information on this and the global Making Good Men Great movement, check out goodmengreat.com to get into contact. If you have a topic for the show or would like to be a guest on the air, please email producers at miranda@noirtainment.com. That's Miranda, Miranda, at noirtainment, noirtainment.com. Thank you, and always keep inspiring change.